Welcome to Leadership Bites with myself, your host, Guy Bloom. This is a leadership podcast where I have conversations with colleagues, I chat with guests, and sometimes there'll be just me talking. You can connect with me at livingbrave.com, and when you enjoy the episode, subscribe and please tell everyone. Fantastic to have you on this episode of Leadership Bites. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Delighted to be here. Thanks, Guy.
I'm super excited. I keep saying that. I've noticed on each one of my episodes, I go, I'm so happy to have you here. Whereas I've been genuinely happy to have people on, I'm genuinely happy to have you on. So
I echo that as well.
You know, we've known each other for some time, but do that introduction just so we got a sense of you.
Yeah, of course. I'm Elona Mortimer-Zhika. I'm the CEO of a business called Iris Software Group. Iris is one of the largest software businesses in the UK that are privately held. It's a transatlantic business. We are a market leader in the UK, but we also have 20% of our business out of the Americas now. We've got about 3,000 people that work at Iris, amazing people. And what they do is provide software and services to about 100,000 businesses in the UK and North America and globally. We provide them with software around finance, HR, payroll. About 50% of the England schools are our customers. About 50% of the UK accountants are our customers. And then we pay about 1 in 5 people in the UK and 6 million people globally. So have a look at your payslip because the chances are you might be paid by Iris.
I know being at school, there is the Iris app.
Yes, absolutely. If you're a parent, you might know Parent Mail, you might know iSams. So we have some great products.
And just to give a size of turnover for the organisation, which always I think helps people contextualise just what is it that we're dealing with? What are we dealing with when it comes to Iris?
So Iris has got revenues of about £320 million and EBITDAs of about £150 million. So it's quite a big business now, valued at over £3 billion. And that's why I said it's one of the very, very few large businesses in the UK that remain private. We are private equity backed, and we are backed by HG Capital and ICG. HG in particular have had ownership of Iris on and off for the last 16 years. And that's been fantastic because we have learned a lot and we have grown a lot together.
People listening won't know, I work with you as an organisation, and to add what value I can do with the senior team, etc. I think your journey is particularly valuable to understand because when we're going to talk about culture, we're going to talk about leadership and teams. It's easy to be relatively trite on these topics and just list the things that are inherently valuable, but I also know that you have a passion and it's very much linked to your identity. Give people a sense of that journey that took you from, hey world, I'm now born, through to, blimey, I'm in charge of Iris. It could be, well, it was preordained, these things would happen, and then others, it's like, I don't know how the hell it happened. But it'd be good just to get a sense of that journey, and that'll help people have even greater value, I think, when they hear you talk about things.
Wow, how long have we got? I was born in Albania. And for those of you that don't know, Albania is a small country that used to be under strict dictatorship for 50 years. So I was born into dictatorship. That meant the country was pretty closed off. Nobody was allowed in or out of the country. You don't meet anybody that's not Albanian. There's no foreign TV allowed, apart from we were allowed 4 hours of TV a day. And Norman Wisdom, randomly, was one of the only shows that we could watch. His character Pitkin we were allowed to see that. So he is much loved in Albania. So there is a little fact.
I'd heard that the dictator of Albania absolutely loved Norman
Yes.
Wisdom, and I'd always wondered if that was one of those kind of folklore things, but it clearly existed.
Think because his humor was quite obvious and not political, we were allowed to watch him, and was one of the very, very few things we could watch that was an Albanian TV. So it was great for us. But it's a very, very different upbringing. And then when I was 15 years old, I went for an interview amongst many other 15-year-olds in Albania to get a scholarship to come to the UK. And I was the lucky winner of that scholarship. So I came at the age of 16 to a college called United World College off the Atlantic. It's in Wales. There are 18 of these colleges across the world. And their premise is to unite the world. They Mandela was one of the original sponsors. His vision was that education is a great tool to unite the world, and you can be very clever and you can be very talented. But if you are born in a country like Albania, then the chances are you're not going to be given the same opportunities as somebody that's born in a country like the UK. Therefore, the world leaders, etc., are never going to be diverse enough and come from those countries. So his vision was he wanted to give the right to the best education to every single child that deserved it. So at 16 years old is quite an important age. You're old enough to know your mind, young enough to be molded. It's the age where you do sort of A levels. In my case, I did international baccalaureate. So I came as the only Albanian in the college for that year. And I went to a college of 200 kids from 135 different countries. So to put that in context, that I hadn't met anybody that was an Albanian before. This was a massive, overwhelming, challenging, and amazing, all in equal measure experience for me, and probably the most defining thing that happened in my adult life and my professional career. Because the only way I can describe it is that my world just became big overnight. That's the easiest way to say it. I realized how much more there was to learn. I was suddenly, one of the least smart people in the room, as I was surrounded by amazing, talented 16-year-olds. And I learned a lot. I learned about diversity because all of my friends came from genuine different paths of life, different beliefs, different, economic backgrounds, from royalties to war-ridden countries. And the beauty of that is that we all approach the same thing from a different angle because we had different points of view. And what that does is that when approached with exactly the same problem, looking at it from a different angle gives you a perspective that leads to a better outcome in the end. And fundamentally, that's why I have been for many, many years a massive supporter of diversity, not because it's a tick in the box and is the right thing to do, but because it genuinely is good for business. It makes your decision-making better because people from different backgrounds will make your world bigger and therefore will think of more things and bring different points of view to the table. So that was a key thing that I learned.
I've seen these things on YouTube where they've given somebody that's colorblind a pair of glasses that allows them to see color, and the revelation of putting them on, and just it's the same world but fundamentally different. I don't know why, but when you just said about that, I can imagine you win a scholarship and you go, okay, and you know what you're going to do, but you don't know what you're going to do. I imagine it's almost that moment of that first day. It literally must have been like putting on a new pair of glasses and going, oh my goodness, I can only imagine it.
That's a really good description. I'm going to use that in the future. It honestly was. And I mean, I didn't know. I didn't know a thing, Guy. I look back now, and obviously I was excited to be winning this. And as an impressionable 16-year-old going to the UK and being given this opportunity was fantastic. But I hadn't thought it through at all. Neither had my parents. They didn't want to deny me this amazing opportunity. But my mum fainted at the airport because suddenly she realized she's letting go of her daughter. She hasn't seen the school. She doesn't know where I'm going. I had to get a visa to arrive. The first time I'm on a plane, I had $100 on me, not even pounds, because you couldn't even buy pounds in Albania. So I hadn't thought it through at all. The weather was different. I didn't speak the language. I had never seen a laptop. It was a massive learning curve, and one of those where you can sink or swim. And for me, I knew that I would regret going back. I knew that this was an amazing opportunity. And as hard as it was, particularly the homesickness, that was really, really difficult, actually. Genuinely, there's a genuine pain in your chest when you wake up every morning going, oh my God, I miss home. And I'd estimated that. But I did know that this was so unique and I would regret giving up. So I owed it to myself to give it the best shot. And that's what I tried to do. And as I said, it was the platform and the most fundamental thing that's happened to me that has, genuinely created the leader that I am today. And I probably didn't appreciate the magnitude of how much, it meant to me as well until I went back. I went back for my 10-year reunion, and then I went back for my 20-year reunion. And that was even more meaningful because I was, I was 36, 37 then, and I was more established in my career. And I'm looking at this going, wow, that's why I am the way I am. That's where I landed. And I took my little boy there for the 20-year reunion, and I took my mum as well. And this was the first time my mum saw the school where she'd sent me when I was 16-year-old from Albania. It's crazy because she wasn't allowed to have a visa for a long time. So she couldn't come to my graduation or anything like that. So
and there wasn't just a video message now where you could just go, hey, Mum, I'm here. Let me show you around.
No,
there was none of that
it was
going
a fax machine. So I don't know. Do you remember faxes?
Do you know what? The fact that you think I'm not that old is a beautiful thing. And we'll go. I'm pleased we've captured this. Do I remember fax machines?
Honestly. I had saved these faxes I used to get from my family and my friends, and I actually found them a few months ago, and I'd wrap them up and stuff, and I opened them up and they've disappeared. The ink has just gone. So they were just empty bits of paper now, which is really, really sad. But it's a long way of saying you are absolutely right. It was like seeing the world in color for the first time. So, and I am going to use that.
I just wanted to share that because I think it feels as if whatever comes next, that was a moment. I mean, having the parents, I'm sure, that installed certain behavioural kind of boundaries and expectations. I mean, all these things, but that's a big jigsaw piece. But then this is obviously, the next big jigsaw piece that,
Absolutely.
If this hadn't have happened, where would I be? What would I be doing?
Absolutely. And it did teach me, it genuinely taught me a lot. It did teach me about, being resilient, because as I said, at 16 years old, you miss your mom, they're tricky years. You miss food, and the weather is not like in Albania. It rains a lot in Wales. And, there's a lot of bright kids you're surrounded by, and your world is big. And, so you do sink or swim a little bit, and that makes you more resilient. It makes you try really hard, and that's a great skill to have, isn't it?
It is. And just before we move on, I'd be interested, just because I have a sense that what was going on in that school sounds as if it was almost a training ground for conversations, conflicts, understanding people. I have a sense that there was a lot of that going on, probably by design, because that's possibly what it's all about as well. But I imagine you could sort of take a strand and go, I can directly draw a line back to those times, and I can see that's how that set me up to succeed for the shenanigans I was then going to get into, as I got into the commercial space.
100%. Look, it's like an amazing social experiment, right? You bring in 200 kids from different paths, religions, beliefs, as I said, old enough to be opinionated, young enough to be molded, together to get, the motto was international understanding. The whole premise of it was that we are all different, and that's what makes us amazing. And our different points of view are all worth listening to. But there is a point where you can look at the greater good. There is a point at which you can see that there is Nash equilibrium. And by understanding each other's point of view, we can coexist and make better decisions for the world. And leaders can look at a bigger world and consider everything rather than one thing, because we are born with bias, and we are conditioned to think and behave in a certain way. And when you bring different people together from different backgrounds, that allows you to break those biases that unconsciously you have built over time, or consciously, so you can actually, you yourself can grow. I came here in 96, 98. So at the time there was war going on between Palestine and Israel. As we all know, these countries have been at conflict for a long time. And, I had friends from both countries, and they had to coexist and live in the same house and eat in the same place. And I always think if they could do it, if they could, despite being conditioned to, not like each other, if they could live in that environment and be taught to see each other's point of view, then when we look at business and conflicts and things we're dealing with, that's nothing. We can all overcome any kind of disagreements that we have in business, because fundamentally there is a greater good, and there is those conflicting truths. If you are presented with all of them, you can create a different version of the world that sits with everybody, where people don't have to fully agree, but they can accept and they can respect each other's point of view. And I think that's really important.
So from there, where did you move?
So I went to Reading University because I was very lucky to get a scholarship. And again, back in 1998, whilst education was free for British students, I know you have to pay today, you didn't have the time for university. As a foreign student, I had to pay quite a lot, and my parents couldn't afford that. And I got very lucky that Reading University that year decided to give international baccalaureate scholarships. And I was the lucky winner of one. I studied accounting and economics. I was always going to do that. That wasn't a surprise, because my dad was an economist, an accountant. My dad is my hero. I love maths. He loved maths. So he taught me to love maths. And my earliest memories of me and him together are we'd walk to my nan's house every day. And as we walked there, he'd give me these maths puzzles to do. And he always joked that I could do arithmetics in my head and add things up before I even could write numbers down. So he really, really nurtured me to have a love for numbers. And I looked up to him. And as I said, he was an economist. So I wanted to be like my dad. So I never questioned that that's what I wanted to do. So I did an accountancy and economics degree. And that was very interesting, because economics in Albania was very different, because we were a centralized economy under dictatorship. There is no free trade, there is no supply, and there is no demand. The government decides what they're going to sell, who they sell it to. So I couldn't turn to my dad to learn about economics. So I had to learn it for myself and in a different language. And that was challenging, but I was very lucky. I got a first class degree, and really, really passionate about being an accountant. I think it's a fantastic profession that can add a lot of value. And I think in challenging times in particular, accountants can play a really, really key role in the economy. So I'm very proud to be an accountant. Even though I'm now the CEO of Iris, I always say I'm an accountant. I then went to Big Four. I started with Arthur Andersen first, and then Deloitte, because Deloitte took over Arthur Andersen as part of the post Enron merger. So I spent 9-10 years there, and then moved into a private equity-backed business that was one of my clients at the time, a business called Acision. So since 2010, I have only done private equity businesses in tech and software. And that fits with what Iris does today as well. And my journey at Iris started 6 years ago, this week, exactly 6 years ago. As the CFO, I did that for 2 years. And then I was very lucky to be promoted to COO. Did that for a year. And now I've been CEO of the business for 3 years and genuinely have the best job in the world. I love it.
So I noticed something. You say I'm lucky, instead of I worked my arse off, and I'm lucky to have got that scholarship. I'm lucky to have got that degree. I'm lucky to have got that promotion.
Yes, I mean, it is a lot of hard work. I do like the phrase of, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So you do make your own luck. I do still feel that there were certain times in my life where opportunities were presented to me. And I think that is a bit of luck. And I'm grateful to those people that presented those opportunities, to, whether it was my teachers that decided at 16 I was going to be the one representing my school, or bosses that have promoted me to roles above my, being honest, my level of expertise on paper, because they knew I could achieve it because of my attitudes rather than necessarily 20 years of doing something. So I'm grateful to all of those things, to all of those people and opportunities. And then absolutely, it's taken a lot of hard work to make sure that they never regretted making that decision, and I never let them down. And what that's done is opened up more opportunities, which has been fantastic.
And that is, and the reason I raise that is, it's not that so much that you self-deprecate, but I think there is something about humbleness and about modesty. Operating at a senior level, you have to recognize your skills. You have to know what your competence is. You have to know, look, I am good at that. But it's a very fine line that people tread between recognizing that they're excellent at something and then thinking they're excellent.
Yeah, and I'm confident, but I don't want to stretch that to cocky and arrogant. I myself don't like that trait, so I'd rather speak my work. I'd rather let my work speak for me rather than tell the world how amazing I am. So, but that's just a personal thing, at the end of the day, when you're a leader. And I have to say this, the role of leadership, I believe, has changed anyway over time. And leaders were expected to be stern and authoritative and have this gravitas. And I think now people appreciate, this is my opinion anyway, people appreciate leaders. Obviously, you've got to be strong. Obviously, you've got to make decisions and give certainty. But they appreciate seeing you as a human as well. They appreciate seeing your humility and your vulnerability. And I think COVID in particular was fantastic for that, because in COVID, suddenly, and rightly so, vulnerability became a strength rather than a weakness. And I don't think as leaders, we should ever lose our human touch. We're people at the end of the day. We talk to people. And if we want to be followed and trusted by our employees, they've got to relate to us at that level. We can't put ourselves on some pinnacle above there and people go, yeah, but you've got to be very special to be a CEO. You've got to work really, really hard and be a good person and know what you're doing and have the right team. But it's achievable. And to make that journey achievable for people, you've got to connect and relate to them. You can't put yourself in some pedestal that looks a completely, entirely different world to what their world is, in my opinion, anyway.
And that's very powerful, that willingness to show you my vulnerability. Don't confuse that with me being vulnerable.
Yes.
And I think that's, and if you do, that'll be a mistake you'll possibly only make once, not because I'll be aggressive about it, but I'll educate you, particularly in that male space, that fulfilling the caricature of that be strong driver, that look as if you have authority, fulfill the caricature of strength. It's something that I absolutely see, and I've seen you do masterfully, which is, I'm going to have compassion. I'm going to show you my humanity. But let's be clear, we're not running a kibbutz.
We're definitely not.
That's like raising children, isn't it? As in, it's almost impossible to get it right all the time. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? If I'm going to show you compassion, then I run the risk that you may take that as weakness. Okay, and if we do get there, we'll have that conversation. You've always got to take a position. And when you take a position, it's going to be open to interpretation and people aren't going to be used to it. And the reason I wanted that educational jigsaw piece to be filled in, what a learning space that set you on that right path. And it's probably in you inherently as well.
Guy, part of it is that genuinely, my early experience, when I said it made my world bigger, I think my world has stayed big since then. And what that means is that I have a thirst for learning. And no matter how much I learn and I grow and I succeed, the world is just getting bigger and bigger. So there is a lot more to learn and grow and succeed. And that's always going to be my mindset. So I am not the kind of person that's going to sit in the room and act as the smartest person in the room, because I don't think I need to be. I think my job is to hire amazing people and learn from them. And that would be ideally the nirvana situation. But of course, I am the person in the room who's going to make the decision and stand by the decision and holds the accountability and responsibility for the, for the good of the business. But I do think it's that thirst for learning and that work in progress and accepting that as a leader, I think is really, really important. I actually get quite put off on a personal level by people that think they are the finished product, because to me, that just means you've got a fixed mindset, and we can't go anywhere with that. We've all got to keep a growth mindset, especially in today's world where there is so much change happening around us, where there's so much tech adoption much more than ever before, where there's an economy disruption that's going on. We've got to be flexible as leaders. So actually, it's great that you've got 20 years of knowledge in something. That's fantastic. But you still got to keep that up to date and keep learning, because what was good yesterday and what worked for yesterday doesn't work today. So nobody should be a finished product. I can't deal with that. There's nothing I can do with a finished product. I can't grow you and you can't grow me. And that's how I feel about it.
And that's a curiosity mindset. That's the agile learner. That's all these phrases that we have. And I think I really have a sense of when I'm got programs in terms of my business where I'm dealing with talent or doing a talent program for those kind of aspiring managers and leaders, whatever that might be. One of the big things that people sort of say is, in terms of me moving forward, in terms of me getting promoted, this idea of gravitas and weight, having presence. I joke about it because somebody once said to me, do I just have to get older? And I go, well, that is a strategy, but it's going to take a while. If you're in your early 20s, you might want to do a slightly accelerated version of that. And I've come to a position now, what you've really got to do is have a relationship with learning that is on a very broad spectrum. And you've got to take an interest in things that are outside of necessarily what you're interested in. That's not that you have to be an expert in everything, but I notice when I'm in a room with people, exec level, for example, and I'll say, so, on TikTok, the majority, some will go, yep, others will go, I've never even been on it. I don't mean you have to be an active participant uploading stuff onto TikTok, but that means you don't even really know what the point of reference is. You don't really understand what's going on. You don't have a sense of that pulse. Oh, it's not a big thing, is it? For a certain demographic, it's their entire life, or it's a jigsaw piece in their life. You've not even visited it. It's like saying, I don't like Thai food. Have you ever had it? No. Well, you've got to put one piece in your mouth to have an opinion, right? And that curiosity mindset, you don't have to adopt it. You don't have to become it, but you've got to get it. And that's where I see people fall down. And that's the thing I encourage 25-year-olds, even 30-year-olds, don't let it go.
I completely agree with you. I actually hire for curiosity, and I've done for the last 20 years. And I ask people a question, tell me out of 10 how curious do you think you are? And they always think it's an odd question. And I think it makes absolute sense, because if you're curious, you've got a thirst for learning, you're going to find out more things that somebody doesn't. And actually, you're going to be innovative. There is better decision making and more innovation that comes out of curiosity than anything else. So I think it's super, super important. It also means that you can think wider, and it's back to that your world is bigger again. For me, being a parent is actually one of the most humbling but also experiences that I've learned a lot from. Seeing the world from the eyes of your children, because they are curious by nature. I think we're all born curious, and then somehow we lose it. We get conditioned, biased, I don't know.
Yeah.
And we lose that curiosity that children have. And I when I see the world from the eyes of my children, it's actually a really, really eye-opening, amazing experience. Yeah. How less bias they have, how they will ask questions and without worrying, like, how will it come across if I just ask this? How far they push it. I read this experiment a while ago about different groups of people, children and adults, were asked about, if you could have one power, what would it be? And the adults turned around and went, I want to lose some weight, have more hair, I don't know. Maybe you might ask for the hair thing, guy, just saying. But then the kids were like, I want to fly. And it's amazing how their boundaries and their bar is so high, because your curiosity and their sense of what's possible and impossible is far bigger than some of us who have, over years of bias decided that I can only go so far and I have to be a certain way in order to succeed. No, go and fly, get yourself some wings. The impossible can be possible. And keeping that growth mindset is really important to succeed, I think.
When it comes to innovation, there has to be a psychological safety. There has to be a sense of, I'm not going to invalidate my entire personality here by coming up with an idea that actually may not really be the answer, but may be a trigger. I do exercises with teams. If I give you the rules of the game and then I say you can't eat until you solve it yourself, most people would die. But actually as a team, it relies on somebody having a stupid idea for somebody else to go, ooh, no, not that, but this. And then the bouncing effect builds this solving and lose that very, very quickly. And I noticed with my 10-year-old Milo, some years ago, he said, why are umbrellas called umbrellas and not rain blockers or something like that?
I love it. See?
And you kind of go, I don't know, son.
You can't argue with that, can you?
No, because in terms of naming conventions, that wasn't a phrase he used. He would go, well, why would you call it that? Why are we calling it that and not this? Why are we calling it the Model 32G.4? Why don't we call it the Jonathan or something? Something they can wrap their head around. All these little things are these curiosities, that willingness to be playful doesn't mean you're messing about.
No, and I think what happens is as we grow, we accept some things to just be true through conscious or unconscious bias, and we don't question them, right? You've never questioned why an umbrella is called an umbrella. You've just accepted that that's what it is. And having that growth mindset and that curiosity allows you to question the status quo and throw out ideas out there. And that's why, for me, it comes back to diversity. That's where having different people in the team from different backgrounds, and I don't mean just race, and I don't mean just male and female. I do mean from different backgrounds, nationalities, beliefs, paths of life, economic backgrounds, means that they all have a different level of bias that they've accepted in life, which leaves for a different level of questioning, because for some of them, they will question why an umbrella is called an umbrella, whilst others have accepted it. So it brings more challenge to the table, more discussion, more innovation, more decision-making. And I mean, it's an interesting one, the comment you made about how many people are worried maybe about saying the wrong thing or making the wrong decision. Or my experience of life and working in leadership for many years now is that there are very few business decisions that are irreversible. So why does it matter if they're wrong? Like, genuinely, I'm not a surgeon on an operating table doing open heart surgery. If I made a wrong decision there, that could cost somebody's life. So that is high pressured, and I have a lot of respect for people that do that. In my job, and in 99.99% of the businesses, you make a decision and then you realize 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, whatever, that it was the wrong decision. You can just reverse it. And I always say to people, if in doubt, tell me how much you're going to sink before we realize that it's the wrong decision. How are you going to fail fast? Whatever idea you bring to the table, if I'm a bit dubious about it, because we're going, okay, just tell me, what do you need to prove that this is going to succeed or not? How will you fail fast? And if they can't answer that question, then that's a different thing. But if they can answer that question, the reality is you didn't lose a lot and you learned a lot by failing fast for the next thing. So just speak up anyway. Because what's the worst that's going to happen?
And that's that psychological safety space. I think with psychological safety, that's almost as if people want the culture to make it so safe that I don't have to have any resilience or personal accountability.
No. Well, you have accountability, right?
They go, no, we can't make it so gentle that nobody would raise an eyebrow. As in, look, if you made a decision that you absolutely guaranteed would be correct at the level that you're operating, and then it turned out to be fundamentally wrong, we may have to have a conversation about that. It's not safe in the sense of there may not be a raised eyebrow all the way through to a harsh conversation. What is safe is to go, should have turned right. That's what I need. I need you to have the bravery and the accountability.
And I genuinely think that, first of all, from my experience, no decision is worse than the wrong decision. So just wait and see doesn't really work in business. We're not going to wait and see what the interest rates might do to our cost of capital, we're going to have to plan for it now. We can't wait until things have gone so bad, because by then it's too late. So I think making fast decisions is better than waiting for perfect data to make the decisions, number one. Number two, my experience is, on the whole, the majority of the people that we employ are good people that want to do a great job. Nobody wants to get up in the morning to go and do a bad job. People take pride in what they do. Yes, there is a transaction, they get paid for doing, they get paid X for doing Y. But on the whole, people spend time at work, a substantial amount of their day at work. So they love what they do. They want to add value. They want to understand how what they're doing has had an impact. So on the whole, people are competent and they care. There's always going to be some, but generally, if a bad decision is made, it wasn't made because people didn't care. It wasn't made because they are so incompetent at their job, because you'd like to think that there are measures in place in any business where you have got performance review, etc., where you wouldn't allow those people to be in charge of decisions. It happened because they had incomplete data or, some sort of information at that point in time that made them think we will go left when we should have gone right. So it's okay, isn't it? It's okay to go, I should know more and I should have done better, or actually in hindsight, but hindsight's a great thing and we can't invent it, I could have gone the other way, as long as you are accountable. As long as you go, I've learned these 3 things and I'm now going to take those 3 things into my next thing. If you make the same decision wrong twice and 3 times, then that's just, that's not acceptable, because we have to learn from decisions, right? So,
and in your position, there's acquisitions and there's integrations and now we got 3,000 people, and now it's not just national, it's international, and we might even dare say start to use the word global. Then you move, it's an interesting thing to be from, I'm the CEO of a business with the ability to have reach, and then for some people, I'm kind of potentially a figurehead. I'm somewhere over there. And what's the reality of growth and maintaining culture?
It's a very good question, something I'm really passionate about. And the answer is it's really hard, right? So I met somebody, one of our employees the other day, who had been at Iris for 10 years. And they said when they joined Iris, they remember going for lunch with the CEO. The CEO would take every new joiner out for lunch when they joined. How fantastic is that as part of your onboarding, right? So I'm sitting there going, oh God, I don't do that. And to put it in context, Iris probably had 200 people then, with one head office, right? With one all in one place. And now we have 3,000 people in 20 odd offices in many countries. And and we work virtually and all of that. So that's just become impossible anyway, even if I wanted to do it. And we hire 100 people every month. So, the size of the problem, if you like, or the opportunity is different. So what do I do? I think it needs to start with top down. And I think the first thing to do is you need to create clarity as a business of what you stand for. When I joined Iris was still quite big, made £45 million of EBITDA. It now makes 3 times that. Had 700 people. And had grown by acquisition quite a lot. And actually, if I'm honest, it was a house of brands. The acquisitions hadn't been integrated into Iris. So we had employees with their old email addresses. None of them had an Iris email address. The offices had been kept the same. The products hadn't been branded. I'm not even sure if the employees knew they worked for Iris. They still thought they worked for the business that employed them, because there was no sign of Iris, right? We had just bought these successful businesses and they had done amazingly well, but we hadn't integrated anyone. So the first thing I did when I took over as COO, actually, when I had responsibility for our people function as well, is hire an amazing chief people officer, Steph, who is awesome, and then genuinely decide to go, right, what are we about? We need a mission, because we didn't have these things, right? The basics, the brilliant basics. We need a mission, we need a vision, and we need a set of values. If we're expecting to corral our amazing employees behind Iris, then what is Iris's identity? What do we stand for? So we came up with our mission, our vision. Steph actually took 100 values, So any value you could potentially think of, to all of our employees, and they chose their top, they ranked them. And then we picked the ones that they ranked the most, if the highest, if that makes sense, and chose those and actually made a word out of it. So we've got 6 values at Iris today. They stand for impact, making it happen, passion, accountability, customer, and teamwork. The first one, the I, is innovation, but they spell the word impact. And we did that on purpose because we wanted them to remember it. Because how often do you have company values that are on some wall somewhere, but you ask the people, what are they? And they go, well, I think it's integrity, one of them, because that makes sense, would have that. And maybe, is it trust? Oh, I don't know. No, maybe it's customer. And actually what you realize is you need to make your values part of your everyday culture. So we spell the word impact with them. And each value stands on its own. So there is a mug for innovation and being curious. And there is a mug for accountability, back to what we were discussing earlier. There is a mug for making it happen, because you should make decisions quickly. So all the stuff we've talked today. But there is also impact mugs and impact awards, most importantly, because whilst you've got to laminate them, and I genuinely think you should, because people respond to visuals, so they need to be on walls in offices, they need to be on your desktops, they need to be on these mugs and pens, so people understand you're taking those values seriously, not just in the head office. You've also got to celebrate them, because laminating is not enough, so you've got to make them part of your culture. So we have impact awards at Iris, and every quarter employees will vote for each other. It's run by employees for employees, to show that certain person has demonstrated one of Iris's values. So as we buy businesses, we now have a platform. We know what our identity is. We know what the values are that we stand by the most. And as part of onboarding those new employees, we onboard them through our Iris values and what's important to us. And let's be clear, these values aren't, extraordinary. They're normal things that everybody would think that makes sense. And every business, if you set them down, would say, of course I look after my customers and I care about customers. Of course I think teamwork is really important. Of course I think innovation is key. So it's just about making sure that they understand we hold this to a high bar. We will judge you on them in your objectives and your appraisals. We will celebrate you with awards when this happens, so that they know what we're about. And then you communicate, right? So every time we buy a business, I have a call with every single employee, all employees, to tell them about me, the person, Iris, the business they joined, our culture, what we are about. And of course, my leadership team does the same. We have an M&A integration team now whose full-time job is to think about, what are we going to do with this business when we buy it? And how will we make them feel part of Iris? And they are the team in between the new business and Iris. So they don't have to go to 5 or 6 people and go, where do I find XYZ? They've got a person dedicated to making their transition as smooth as possible. I do calls with new employees that we have as part of onboarding and explaining what Iris is about. And then every Friday I do a blog to all of our employees. So if you become a new employee of Iris, you get it every Friday, where I tell you a little bit about the week and what I've done, but most importantly, what has happened at Iris and what our Iris heroes have done and how have they demonstrated our values and our culture, and who should we thank and who has gone over and above for customers and who's doing charity work, and all of that comes together. So communicate, and then make sure that if you choose something, in this case your values, you live by them, because it's not something you do once every few years and forget about it by printing it on some head office wall. You have got to live and breathe them and demonstrate as a leader that you are showing those same values, because people are led by us.
And that's the phrase that actually I think sums all of that up: communicate. And then when you think you can't communicate anymore, communicate. One of the analogies I have is the beat of the drum, which takes a long time. People can hear the noise, but they may not pick up the tune.
Yeah, I agree.
You can go boom, 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 and people go, there's something happening over there. But if I said replicate that beat, hearing the noise isn't the same as recognizing the beat.
100%. And people, to your point, I live and breathe, this is my day job and this is my life. So it's obvious to me. It's not so obvious to everybody, right? And often I've gone, how come you don't know about strategy? I explained that 3 months ago. And then I'm sitting there going, 2 hours of their life 3 months ago. How is that going to be so memorable for them? So we have a monthly all-employee call where myself and Exco and some of our SLT will talk to all 3,000 employees and tell them what's going on at Iris. So we had ours yesterday for this month. And one of the standard slides that I now present every single month is our 4 priorities as a business that were decided at the start of our financial year 7 months ago. And it's the same slide. And I genuinely repeat the same slide every month because people have to hear it over and over again for it to fully sink in and for it to actually give the consistency that they need. As a leadership team, you can't be just going like this. You've got to go, these are our priorities. Let me remind you again why it's important. And every role that you play is feeding in one of these. Because some of you are new, some of you are, making a coffee when I mentioned it last time. And we don't tell you every day in your day jobs, right? So let me tell you again. And people need to hear the same message over and over again for it to really resonate. So rather than just hear new things all the time, because that creates a bit more chaos, I think.
You're making meaning for people by saying, hey, your piece of the system feeds that piece of the system. People often have to hear it, not just enough to understand it. They have to hear it enough to realize it's not going away.
That's true.
So intellectually, I can get it, but I also probably am quite busy. And is this one of those things that if it's going to be, I'm used to historically 2 months of this, then it'll be the next thing. Hold on, it's 2 months on. Oh, they're still saying it. Oh, it must be real.
In summary, I have to say culture is evolving and you have to take it seriously. It's not a tick in a box. It's not something that your HR department can do for you. It's the responsibility of all the leaders in the business. And it comes from the very, very top. And my genuine belief is that you can't fake it. You've got to be passionate as a leader about the business you're running and what that business stands for. And then you've got to, live by those standards and by those values yourself, not just expect others to do it for you because, you don't have a business without your people. And your people are the biggest asset you have and the biggest cost in your P&L. So in order to get the right ROI, you've got to get the most out of them. And it's your job as a leader to treat them as being the most important tool you have to succeed. Otherwise, the business is not going to succeed. So I do think leaders have to be passionate about people for this to work. I genuinely believe that. And at Iris, we now are a great place to work in tech, great place to work for women, great place to work for wellness. And that's really important because I want our employees to work for a business that cares. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But do we have good intentions and are we trying to do the right things all the time? Yes, and that's key because these employees have choices. They don't have to come and work at Iris. There are lots of jobs out there and we as leaders have to recognize that they chose us, so we've got to set them up for success and give back as the same way as we are expecting hard work, accountability, fast decision-making, passion, innovation, curiosity. So it's a two-way street. The more you give, the more you get, and we both have to give. They have to give and we have to give.
So I'm going to start to bring the plane into land on this conversation. There's 100 topics. It's leadership, it's culture, and I could keep you here till 4:00 this afternoon. It's a great conversation piece. If somebody said, Elona, is there anything I should read or pay attention to? What do you say to those kind of questions?
Obviously, I say you need to listen to Guy's podcast.
It goes without question, but thank you.
Honestly, I actually quite like listening to podcasts that have got nothing to do with my day job. I listen to the podcast called Things You Didn't Know because I worry that I'm so consumed by what I do, and this is my passion as well, that maybe I've stopped asking questions, back to your point, on those other areas that I should know about. I'm not one of the strongest people on a quiz. I don't like that because I'm very competitive. So if it's general knowledge quiz, then I like to win. So I try to listen to other things as well, because I think it's good for your mind to be broad. I am part of some networks. So me personally, I learned a lot from interaction with other leaders. So I am part of a few networks within the private equity sphere. I'm a patron of Boardwave, where there is a lot of the CEOs, the who's who of CEOs in the software space in Europe, and actually just sitting next to somebody who's got similar challenges to you, because let's face it, most businesses are facing the same challenges today, and seeing their approach is what I learn more from. And then the final thing is reading real stories. I get quite inspired by people who have achieved a lot rather than fiction or anything like that. I get inspired by true stories. So that's sort of what I personally do anyway. There is a gazillion books out there, and I can advise you books. Your book, Living Brave, is amazing, Guy, but there is not one book, right? You've got to be, I think for me is you've got to have a natural passion about this as well. And, LinkedIn is an amazing source of a lot of information, but you learn the most from people. So it's those networks, it's your own team. My team are amazing. I mean, I learn from them every day. Your employees, that's what teaches you about leadership far more than, some rule book or playbook. I couldn't quote you a specific methodology that I use, but I know that I'm using it without realizing I'm using it because I've naturally, learned it through experience.
Okay. Well, listen, Elona, I'm going to get you to stay on for a few moments after I press the stop button. From me, from the audience, this has been, I'm going to use the word delightful. This has been delightful. I love your energy and your passion and your clarity, and just that all shines through, and it's indicative of what you are and what you're about and what you create around you. So from me and for those that are listening, thank you so very much.
Thank you, guys. It's been an honor to be part of this, and sorry about the hair comment as well.
We'll talk about it in a moment.
I'm sure we will. No, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for listening to me as well.
That's it, so I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please share so others get to hear about us, and subscribe so you keep up to date on new episodes. Also visit livingbrave.com if you want to connect with me and find out more about executive coaching, team effectiveness and changing culture. Oh, and of course you can buy my book Living Brave Leadership on Amazon. So on that note, see you soon.